Sometimes the only way to train is through pain. Sometimes the only way to train is through pain. Now the next verse, Hebrews chapter 12, is an extremely important verse for your life. When God spoke the Ten Commandments, and Moses chiseled them into the tablets up there on Mount Sinai. When he spoke, the Bible says he spoke so loud, he's up in the mountains, the people down in the valley could hear him. Hebrews 12 says this, when God spoke from Mount Sinai, his voice shook the earth. But now he says, God says, I will not only shake the earth, but the heavens too. Now what's that mean? Well, by this, he means that he will sift out everything without a solid foundation, talking about your life, so that only the unshakable things will be left. Okay. Sometimes you're going to go through the fire, you're going to go through a problem, you're going to go through a difficulty, and you are being shaken. It's like sifting when you're sifting, flour or anything else. And what he's doing here is he's saying, we're going to get rid of all the temporary stuff, all the man-made stuff in your life, and we're only going to keep in your life the stuff that's going to last forever. That's why you're going through that problem. Job chapter 5 verse 17, consider yourself fortunate when God, all-powerful, chooses to correct you. He says it's a privilege, it's an honor to be corrected by God, because it just means he loves you. Parents who don't correct their kids don't love their kids. And so he says, God whispers to us in our pleasure, but he shouts to us in our pain. And we only change. The only time we change is when the fear of change is exceeded by pain. The only time we change is when our fear of change is actually exceeded by pain. When the pain gets bad enough, then you change. I don't know why, but sometimes God has to lay us flat on our back before we look up to him. And God wants to teach you about himself, and he wants you to teach you about yourself. And some lessons, really, you're only going to learn through failure. Don't touch the stove. You don't touch it a second time, because you learn by being burned. And sometimes, some things in life, you don't learn the value of money till you've lost it. You don't learn the value of friendship till you've lost it. You don't learn the value of your health until you've lost it. And so sometimes God allows pain and problems and shakeups to inspect us, what's really in you. But sometimes God used pain and problems and shakeups to correct you, like he did with Israel. So here's the question. Write this down. What is this problem teaching me? Instead of going, why me? Instead of asking why, you should ask what. Don't ask why when you go through problems. Ask what. What should I be learning? Not why is this happening to me, but what should I be learning? Because God uses problems to correct you. All right? Now let's look at number 3. Sometimes God shakes things up to inspect me. Sometimes God shakes things up in my life to correct me. And number 3, sometimes God shakes things up to direct me. To direct me. He wants to point us in a new direction. He wants to guide us down a different path. Proverbs 16 verse 9, a person may plan his own journey. You got your own life plan out there, but the Lord directs his steps. So you have all your plans, but the Lord is going to direct your steps. Question, how does God direct your steps? Real simple, problems. That's how he directs your steps. Have you noticed that problems often change your plans? Have anybody had that happen in their life? Your problems change your plans. What is God doing? He's redirecting you. He inspects you, he corrects you, and he directs you when things are flying off the wall. Pain is a powerful motivation to change. You've heard me say this before. We don't change when we see the light. We change when we feel the heat. And when it gets hot enough, then we change. Proverbs 20 verse 13 says this, sometimes it takes a painful experience to make us change our ways. And every one of you could give a testimony on that verse. Sometimes it takes a painful experience to make us change our ways. Sometimes God has to light a fire on you so you become uneasy, you become uncomfortable, it gets hot. I mean, even Aristotle said we cannot learn without pain. We cannot learn without pain. Some things, as I said, you learn by being burned.
This is Pastor Rick's Daily Hope, the audio broadcast of Pastor Rick Warren. If you'd like a copy of today's message or the whole series, just go to PastorRick.com. And while you're there, go ahead and sign up for Pastor Rick's free daily email devotional. And be sure to check out all the other great resources available to you. As we look at the unprecedented things going on in our world today, it's clear that we need to be equipped with the resources to handle whatever life throws at us. That's why Pastor Rick has asked his team to make available to you a DVD study kit called Unshakable, which is based on the life of Daniel. In these 8 powerful video sessions, Rick teaches you how to handle life's most unexpected circumstances and extreme pressures, how to avoid compromising on what you believe is right in God's eyes, how to handle success, how to learn from your mistakes, and how to pray the kind of prayers that God answers. This study is perfect for your individual quiet time or in a small group setting. To get your copy of the Unshakable DVD study kit, just go to PastorRick.com or call 800-600-5004. That's PastorRick.com or call 800-600-5004. Here's Pastor Rick with a letter from one of our listeners.
I want you to listen to this testimony from a listener in Monterrey, Mexico. Jonas writes, "Hi there, Pastor Rick. I'm an English teacher in Monterrey, Mexico. I listen to Daily Hope every day by podcast, and it has profoundly enriched my life. I recommend to my students to listen to it and to practice their English skills." Hey, that's a great idea. And I know for sure that if they do, they're going to get much more than just learning English. Thank you so very much. Sincerely, Jonas. Well, thanks for writing, Jonas. My prayer is that Daily Hope will bring the hope that we find in Jesus to your students, just as we're praying that it brings hope to people all around the world. By the way, did you notice how Jonas is sharing Daily Hope podcast with his students? I think that's a great idea. My question to you is, who are you sharing the Daily Hope podcast with? Who could you tell about this good news? You know, good news is so good, we can't keep it to ourselves. We got to share it. So if you share Daily Hope with somebody else, would you let me know about it? Write me. You know the address, rick@pastorrick.com. It's just rick@pastorrick.com. And
if I hope Graham does have a hearing, and if he has a hearing, I'm going to be there participating. But in the meantime, I've got my investigative team in the Finance Committee working on this full time, and we're going to follow these facts to where they lead us. But for sure, we need to know what Obama and Biden knew, and when did they know it? And we also need to know, when it comes to this unmasking of American citizens' names that are supposed to never be disclosed because of constitutional protection. Most of that unmasking is done within the intelligence community because they know what else they need to know about an American citizen, maybe working for a foreign government. But it's very curious that at the highest political levels of the President of the United States, that they're involved with the unmasking. And that's a real issue. We got to get to the bottom of it. Is it for intelligence purposes, or is it for political purposes? And 3 years of digging into this, I've come to the conclusion it's more for political purposes. And for Democrats right today that are saying we're doing this for political reasons, I want to remind them that Senator Feinstein, the Democrat of California, and I sent a letter to the Justice Department February of 2017 asking for the transcripts of the Russian ambassador talking to Flynn, and we didn't get them now. and we're asking for them again. So this is something I've been working on that had nothing to do with the pandemic. So I take very personal the fact that somehow we are just being political because this is a political year and because Biden's involved in this.
Real quickly on that, Senator, James Clapper, Brennan as well, saying, we didn't know who this American individual was talking to the Russians. We wanted the unmasking to find out, and that this was routine. I think Clapper had said this was all very routine, and then there was not a sort of this cabal effort to undermine the future president. Do you buy that at face value?
No, and I buy it for a different reason. He could be saying that sincerely, but you got to connect that to the fact that he lied on television time after time about Russian involvement, and he didn't know of any intent for political reasons to get involved in that. And then when he testifies before the committees under oath, he says he didn't have any intelligence whatsoever that connected him, that would tell him that we had anything to worry about.
So does this go potentially all the way up to President Obama at the time?
I wish I could answer your question, and I'm not avoiding it. I just don't know yet at this time, except for the meeting on January the 5th, and then Biden and other people like Samantha Powers and Susan Rice being very close to the president being involved in this. It looks suspicious, but I wish I could tell you yes or no, and I can't.
All right, we might have not clarified the real newsmaking element in that interview. It started out with Chuck Grassley saying that he was not going to tell Lindsey Graham to call President Obama as a witness, as President Trump had recommended, but he said it would probably be a good idea. I'm going to raise this with Ken Starr, the former Whitewater Independent Counsel, Fox News contributor, more importantly to us. Ken, the issue started with Grassley, and of course the head of that very committee, Lindsey Graham, runs now, that would be responsible to try to take this to the next level if they do, and to call Barack Obama as a witness to that committee. How likely do you think that is?
It is all dependent, Neil, on the facts. And you build your case. Step at a time, gather the facts, assess the facts, and then if the facts point to the president, and we know about the January 5th meeting, then there is a compelling need to get his testimony, to hear what he has to say about it. You would do it through an interview. So it's a little too soon to tell, but certainly it is in the realm of possibility, bordering unlikelihood, because there was this huge flurry of interest in this Kislyak communication with an American. By the way, poor General Flynn, not only in light of what's been happening on the legal front, but we now know that essentially he was cleared at the lower levels of the FBI after a 5-month investigation to whether he had connections with the Russians. And by this time, remember, he was the designated national security advisor to the incoming president of the United States. It's all very odd.
So, Ken, what's odd to me is so many administration officials, very high up officials, as I said to the vice president at the time, seeking this unmasking. In other words, not knowing ostensibly who the person was who's having these discussions with the Russian ambassador, but trying to find out who that would be, leading to obviously General Flynn